Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Okay, okay. Vice Chancellor is not in this event.
Joining, sir. Will be joining.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. The president of this session, Dr. A. Pratap Kumar Reddy, um, the guests of honor, Sudhir Kumar, the NABARD, of course, he's a good friend of mine. We worked together for some time. Of course, my batchmate, Girdhar Krishna, Director, Experimental Stations, Dr. Balguruvai Garu, Dr. V. Srinivas Rao, Dr. Satyagopal, of course, Dr. Vijay Abhinandan. Again, I had the opportunity of interacting with him in earlier times. And Dr. Vishnu, the new Vice Chancellor, Dr. Jiju P. Alex, Director of Extension, and the alumni of Bapatla Agriculture College, the students, faculty, and of course with special reference to the Faculty of Agriculture Extension Department of Agriculture College, Bapatla. First of all, let me congratulate Agriculture College Bapatla for their wonderful celebration of this Platinum Jubilee celebrations. And of course, I want to also congratulate this instance, the new Vice Chancellor, Dr. Vishnuvardhan Reddy, who has taken over recently, and I think he will be providing a very able and inspiring leadership for all of us. These difficult times, hope all of you are doing well amidst this Corona pandemic. It is very peculiar situation. So I would like to wish you and your families all safe and healthy life in these trying times. I'd love to be personally present at Bapatla, but for this unimaginable human sufferance owing to Corona. I must thank Dr. Satyagopal for making a couple of visits and amidst of this Corona and ensuring that I block my time, and we have planned our travel also. But somehow I think what we propose, I think God disposes. I would have loved to be there in person, because I just visited one night the Bapatla College. Still, it is in my memory, that old building, hostel buildings and all. It is almost like nostalgia. I would have loved to come and spend a day or two going around Bapatla, seeing some of the farms, farmers, meeting some farmers. Um, so I wish you all strength to cope up with this unprecedented situation of fear, risk, and maybe instances of loss of near and dear. And I wish that we escape from this pandemic soon. The Agriculture College Bapatla, of course, you are all aware, but for my own refreshing memory, founded, I think, in 1945, 11th July 1945, by the government of Composite Madras State. That is the rich historical perspective of this agriculture college. It is the oldest of the 8 agriculture colleges that make up Acharya N.G. Ranga Agriculture University, Andhra Pradesh. So I want to really congratulate the leaders of Agriculture College Bapatla for bringing up to this stage. I think we should remember the first principal, C.R. Srinivas Iyengar, was the first principal. It was originally affiliated to Andhra University. And then later on, I think in 1964, it became part of Andhra Pradesh Agriculture University, established with, I think, another memorable name. We should remember O. Pulla Reddy as the first Vice Chancellor. And there are a lot of luminaries. I think somebody has mentioned Dr. M.V. Reddy Garu, who has been instrumental in bringing out this wonderful rice cultivar. And even after so many decades of its release, still it is the pride jewel of the farming community across the country, in most parts of the country. And of course, my batchmate, I'm very happy to share the platform with Giridhar, very dear batchmate, and doing wonderful work as director and of course in number of capacities. There are a number of luminaries. I know I'm not going to take time in listing out. I think one notable of the current disposition is Mr. Chintala, who has become the chairman of NABARD, and I think Sudhir would know Chintala has become the chairman of NABARD, and I think we can expect a lot of great things for agriculture sector, being an agriculture man, and of course maybe since being alumni of Agriculture College Bapatla, number of things you can expect from Mr. Chintala, chairman of NABARD. You should go and grab when he is there at the helm of affairs. The topic of this day is the transformation of agriculture extension strategies for effective reformation. This may appear to be routine, and of course for the extension department it is very dear, but for agriculture sector it's very, very critical, the most critical aspect of the current days. So I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty and history, and but I want to share some of my thoughts on this. In preparation for this, I was working for the last few days as what I should present in this limited period of time. Of course, every person after retirement will become wise, and all wisdom will dawn upon them. So, but I don't want to be a wise man, but I want to be a practitioner, continue to be practitioner. And from that perspective, I would be sharing my thoughts. I recall my college days, agriculture college days, when the agriculture demonstrator used to come my village, and of course the bank RDO in our village, Syndicate Bank, was the service area, rural development officer. I still remember the affection, affinity with them, the amount of connect the farmers, my brothers and other farmers used to have. It's like a festivity when they come to the village. Everybody used to assemble and then meet them, and then take advice and put their problems, and they'll try to give whatever the solutions they can afford. Not that all problems used to be solved by these visiting experts, but the psychological connect they had established with the rural community, with the farmers, not only farmers, and every rural household. I think that is the important aspect which we should remember, and then compare now in the present terms an agriculture officer or agriculture extension worker, whether he is eliciting that much of respect, that much of response, that much of trust from the rural community, from the farmers. There is a big question mark, and I leave it to you to assess to what extent they are achieving it. Of course, a little bit about agriculture sector. I'm not getting into too much details. Many speakers have spoken. Pratap Reddy spoke, and other experts have also spoke. And I think we have to be alive to the fact that the sector is an important, of course, because of half of the population still depend on agriculture. Whether the agriculture sector as such can support half of the population, 50%, I think 50, 58% of the population by this sector itself is a big question mark. I think we keep hearing that the agriculture sector cannot support this many number of families. So they have to move away from the agriculture sector. So too little resource is being shared by too many hands, too many mouths. No doubt we have achieved excellent the production and self-sufficiency and the food security and so on and so forth. But the dependence of this many number of farmers on the agriculture sector is a big question mark. We have to do some work on that. How many people can respectably live with adequate income levels on this sector or on agriculture and agriculture allied sector? So is a new is a issue which has to be dwelt upon. And of course, the present trend, if you see, there is an increasing trend of higher contribution from to these rural households from the non-farm sector. That means other than farm sector, into the income kitty of these rural households. And of course, despite more than half of the population dependent on the sector, allied agriculture and allied sectors, its contribution to the GDP is going down, and it stands around 14% now. Of course, one may say that the reduction in the contribution to the GDP sector and increased contribution from manufacturing and service sectors is a good progressive thing. But at the same time, dependence of more than 50% of the rural households on this sector and contributing only small part of the cake is a big concern, which we have to be alive and which have to be considerate and look for some out-of-box ways of solving this riddle. Indian farmers continue to suffer from, I think, in my opinion, still continue to be technology deficit, of course, infrastructure deficit, investment deficit, and of course, management deficit. There are 4 deficits still the farmers continue to suffer. Of course, technology deficit, we have done a lot of good work, but still a long way to go. And of course, the infrastructure and of course, the recent the investment decisions that have been taken by the government. Of course, continued governments, as Mr. Sudhir, CGM NABARD has mentioned, a lot of impetus has been given for the investment in the creation of rural infrastructure. It is a continued thing, but still there is a deficit. And of course, investment deficit, for which, of course, a lot of credit, everything is going. There are a large number of problems in that sector also. And of course, management deficit. Management deficit relates to the agriculture extension, which is the present day topic, the relevant area for the present day context. I'll come back a bit later. These deficits make the agriculture sector the unremunerative and unpreferred profession. Unremunerative and unpreferred profession. The sector also is aging. The sector is also aging, with large number of youth moving away from the sector or doesn't want to come back to the sector. I'll spend some more time on this. To ensure food security of India, improving the livelihoods of more than 50% of rural households and making the Indian economy to grow at envisaged, whatever we used to say 8%, 8 to 9%, but now under the corona pandemic situation, it is 4%, 5%. That itself is going to be a big challenge. And it is to achieve that, it is essential to transform farming from its present still a way of life into an agri enterprise. A lot of changes are happening, a lot of things are happening. A lot of enterprising individuals are looking at agriculture as a mainstay of their activity or business, or creating the startups. But we have to move at a faster pace. Despite considerable effort over the years by the government of India and of course the state governments and the agriculture institutions under ICR and the agriculture university system of the state, in the different forms of agriculture extensions like Atma, modified Atma and so on and so forth, still the access to information, access to technology to a farmer is still a big challenge. Even today, I think only about 33% of them, I've taken a study report, 33% of them get some advice from formal channels like KVK, agriculture officer, and so on and so forth. And the rest either have no access or depend on neighboring farmers or input dealers. Input dealers continue to be playing a major role in the agri extension, whether it is a good extension or bad extension, which is a major issue which we have to look at. And the initiatives of the governments, varying governments like Atma, modified Atma, ATIC, KVKs, Sametis, extension EIs, Krishi Darshan, Krishivani, Kisan Call Center, of course, farmers groups under NABARD and other banking institutions, have served, of course, definitely some purpose. To a large extent serve the purpose, but still it is not enough. Still long way to go. That's what I feel. And I think the manage has made some effort in the form of Desi program of bringing the informal input dealers into a formal extension system. I don't know how it is going now. I don't know how after training they go back to what extent they are not actually passing off their products to the farmers, telling goody things, actually seeing the interest of the farmer while dispensing the products which they sell. That is very important. Here there is a conflict between the business and the advice which you have to give. So how can we bridge that deficit, that gap? Is a big issue which we have to see. So there is a need, a shift, a paradigm shift in the way extension is administered to empower the farmers so as to make it viable, relevant, decentralized, farmer-centric, demand-driven, accountable. If an agriculture officer goes and gives an advice, whether he is accountable to that advice or not, whether that is working or not, whether the farmer has the opportunity of getting back to that agriculture officer and say that, hey, this has worked, thank you very much. Hey, this not worked, what was the problem? Whether that accountability is there or not is an issue which we have to see. Again, it is a farm specific because of small land holdings, diversity of the land holding characters, both physical and chemical characters, and so on and so forth. We have to see. And farmer participatory and sustainable. An extension as an institution has to be a sustainable village level institution. Do we have that? Are we able to create that? Of course, number of private extension interventions have come. Like I can quote some of them, like IFCO, Kisan Samachar, eChoupal, RML, Reuters Market Light, M-Krishi, Cropin, Agrocell, Tata Kisan Kendras, utilizing, leveraging the ICT and trying to reach out to the farmers, not of course as a noble purpose, but to propagate, perpetuate, of course, their own business interest. Like eChoupal has come, of course, though we praise it as a major reform, utilizing the IT and ICT and all, but there was a business purpose by ITC. They wanted to procure the best quality Sharbati wheat from Madhya Pradesh and other places. That's why they have come up with that. It's good, at least served some good number of farmers. So this change, that is the paradigm shift in our approach to agriculture extension, would warrant evolving for an altogether new approach that essentially addresses the needs of farmers and transform it into an enterprise. And dear friends, the policy ecosystem is also changing. Suppose, for example, from, let us say, self-sufficiency in food grains, now we are talking of doubling of farmers' income. The Ministry of Agriculture, Department of Agriculture, has been renamed as Department of Agriculture and Cooperation and Farmers' Welfare. So is agriculture extension, or have we started thinking of redefining the approach of agriculture extension towards farmers' welfare, or continue to talk about only, let us say, increased productivity of rice, increased productivity of pulses, increased expanded area of pulses, and so on and so forth? No doubt, increased productivity of a particular crop by improved cultivars, improved varieties is one of the inputs the farmer needs. But there are many more stakeholders, many more inputs which need to be addressed. So have we changed our mindset towards the doubling of farmers' income? Whether that is in our central focus. If that is in the central focus, whole our approach of agriculture extension approach will change. Our research, our training, everything will change. We have to cross our small limited area of, let us say, influencing that you please adopt this variety, you please adopt this practice. It is much more. We require to do much more. So are we thinking in changing our perspectives in those aspects? as I said, the farmers' welfare has become primacy now. Not as production, more production, 290 million tons to 300 million tons, and so on and so forth. Or our buffer stocks are overflowing, and there's a lot of damage. And I do not policy level, we have to do something at that. That is different aspect altogether. So farmer welfare is going to be the fulcrum, the objective, the focus should be the focus of our agriculture extension system. And there is a data indicating that 70% of agriculture households cannot meet their consumption needs even after given diverse sources of income. The share of non-agriculture sector in rural employment has been steadily increasing. The non-agriculture sector contribution to the rural income is increasing. Maybe construction sector, a family of, let us say, 5 people, 2 people will go for construction activity, or some other activity, maybe 1 or 2 people will go for agriculture dependent activities. Now that contribution has gone up to 30% as on 2010, as a 42% as on 2015, based on the NSSO survey data. So 42% of the rural households income is coming from non-farm sector. Is a good, it's not a negative thing, it's good. So can our agriculture extension further reinforce that? As I mentioned in the beginning, I personally feel that there are many more hands dependent on agriculture sector. So we have to divest, we have to diversify them and then put them into alternative occupations. So it is a very good phenomenon which is happening even without our intervention. Is happening. So can our agriculture extension system, can our agriculture extension scientists do some work to accelerate that process, to concretize that process, to make them more scientific, that whole process, to make them sustainable, that whole process which is already a setting, which is happening. And of course, of course, the other distress situation is the recent survey has indicated 52% of the agriculture households are indebted with an average amount of about 47,000 per household. The indebtedness, again, the financial. Mr. Sudhir is there. I think he's aware, and NABARD must be doing something. And it is very high in Andhra Pradesh. I think it reaches 93%. We may blame the loan waiver, we may blame so many other things, but ultimately the sufferer is the farmer. And dear friends, I'm not trying to be negative, I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but the facts I want to place before you. The rich and expert community, the scientific community, the agriculture extension experts, and the community, the scientific community who are going to make the agriculture scientists, grooming the agriculture scientists. So we should be aware these facts. Dear friends, 93% of the rural households earn less than 20,000 per month. 93% of agriculture households, 93% of the agriculture households earn less than 20,000 rupees. Of them, 76% earn less than 10,000 rupees. And I think we in the government system have been benefited by 7th Pay Commission. I don't know whether NG Ranga Agriculture University has adopted the 7th Pay Commission. Must have been definitely that according to their estimation, the minimum wage, the lowest skilled person minimum wage prescribed comes to about 18,000 rupees. So that means 90% of the rural households, most of them are skilled farmers, skilled through their ancestors, and they know how to cultivate and how to do a lot of things. Artisans and other workers earn less than what the government of India considers a minimum living wage. And as many as 3/4 of rural households earn half of this minimum wage. This is a very, very distressing point. I think whatever we talk about agriculture, whenever we talk about agriculture improvement and talk about 290 million tons and so on and so forth, I think this should be there in our forefront, in our screen, on the mind screen. Then I think our response will definitely be much more responsive, much more sensitive, much more empathetic. Dear friends, I would request all of you to consider this and have that empathy. And of course, declining attraction among the youth towards this sector, owing to their raising aspirations. Aspirations are raising. There's nothing wrong with the raising aspirations. We cannot blame the youth that they are not considering agriculture. But there is a change. Suppose if you take Punjab and Maharashtra, the youth are coming back to agriculture, but in a very different, sophisticated way. I'll just mention a bit later. And disinclination of the youth to soil their hands. They're looking at blue collar, white collar jobs. So the challenge is, can we make agriculture blue collar work? Can we make agriculture, agri enterprise a white collar work? I think that's where the scientific community has to put their money. So extension should be ready to adapt to these changing scenarios, the above situational milieu. So in my opinion, the agriculture extension should become a service covering various aspects. Some of them I would mention that here. Number one, to assist the farm family to improve their living standards. Not adopting a improved rice cultivar. That is only one small step. It has to be done. That is one of the interventions which you have to make. But we have to look at the holistic aspect of that farm family. How can we improve their living standards? Which means it should be a developmental advisory and mentoring service, not just extension, not just passing on the knowledge, not trying to teach them, educate them. It is a developmental advisory and mentoring service. Just giving one advice is not going to be enough. It has to be continued mentoring, advisory, mentoring service. So are we in a position to look at that as our necessity? Make the sector or combination of activities attractive to the youth in sync with their aspirations. It's not going to be a single activity, a group of activities. Can we come up with a, let us say, DPR with a group of activities in a particular village, let us say remote part of Andhra Pradesh, which he can take up and he can call himself as a businessman, the youth, for which there is a huge amount of handholding required, a huge amount of managerial, bridging that managerial deficit is required. And I think, let me be frank, including myself in my earlier organizations, we as agriculture are experts, are scientists, are bureaucrats, we are very poor in project management. So can we look at every activity as a project and then manage that as a project with a definite plan, definite outcomes, and of course, definite income levels. So make it entrepreneurial blue collar job in the place of hard labor and soiling type of activity. Modernize the sector, of course, infusing IT, artificial intelligence. A lot of organizations are coming, which requires a lot of your support. Project the farming as a dignified activity with adequate opportunities of income. Somehow, even in our publications, we still continue to show a picture of, let us say, a farmer with a line cloth without anything and taking a spade and then in the rice field. That is our concept of farmer. If we want to attract the youth whose aspirations are at different level, can we change that narrative? We have to change that narrative. Why not a modern, let us say, farmer, let us say, flying a drone for spraying a crop or managing, let us say, a pruning machine in his orchard? I think we have to change the whole narrative. We have to project our communication material IEC in such a way that, hey, here is an activity even we can consider as a respect. And I think the agriculture extension system has to play a very, very important role in projecting that. And that is, I think, one of the important jobs of the agriculture extension system. Need to be bouquet of services: farm, processing, dairy, poultry, fishery, high value precision farming, depending on the local geographical area. We cannot broadcast the advice. Most of our agriculture extension services are broadcasting. Let us say dropping from the air. It may fall in the hands of a farmer of that correct description. It may get into the soil, it may get into the seed, it doesn't have any effect. So the farming advisory system of, let us say, the radio, TV, or let us say even you focus on how many the SMS. I think somebody has mentioned, DGICR has mentioned that so many millions of SMS have gone. But I think we should do a study how many SMSs have been effectively got utilized, how much of broadcasting is happening. I'm not telling that that should not be done, but we should know what is that exact impact of that mode of agriculture extension machinery. So then project-based grooming skilling as a main activity. When we are talking of new areas, so skilling becomes important. New skill areas have to be taken up. Make the supply chains efficient. Improving the supply chains is an important element of agriculture extension in collaboration with, of course, other departments. And I feel that agriculture extension is a continuing thread connecting all the departments, which gives the feedback and which takes the information, technology, mentoring, whatever the competencies to the farmers, farming communities, and connect all other stakeholders at the field level. On one side, connecting all the departments as a connecting thread, and other side, connecting all the stakeholders at the farmer level. That is the bigger picture of agriculture extension, which we should visualize. So optimal right inputs at right cost. In fact, I was talking to the former RBI governor, Mr. Y.V. Reddy, when I was talking about the risk in agriculture sector and all, then he made a very interesting comment that the man-made risks are much higher than the nature-made risks in terms of quality inputs, in terms of quality seed, quality pesticides, quality whatever it may be, and the timely supply is a big issue, big problem which we have to do something. And of course, group approach in the form of FPO to overcome the fragmented role. It's good that a lot of FPOs are coming. I congratulate NABARD, I congratulate the government of India and of course state governments for laying so much of emphasis on FPOs. But FPO is an agriculture extension concept, I feel. Have we done any research, basic research, to say that this form of FPO formation is going to be effective? By actually, of course, by action research. And unfortunately, my dear friends, if we in the research institutions do not provide evidence-based policy prescription, evidence-based policy prescription, we in the bureaucracy, we in the policy making level, we go by our gut feeling. We go by our whatever the feedback that we get from XYZ. So and after that, while implementing, if that whole system fails, suppose if FPO system fails, I think we are going to be in misery. FPO system shall not fail, it has to succeed. So can we give some policy prescription, evidence-based policy prescription for sustaining FPOs, even as on today, except Maharashtra, some parts of Madhya Pradesh, and maybe a little bit of Telangana, the percentage of successful FPOs who have grown, who have become self-sufficient, are minimal. I don't have the data, but I can say, because I was promoting the capacity building of FPOs as a DZ NIRD PR, and we created a lot of training material for every level. But the sustainable FPOs are still limited. And of course, the food quality, nutrition quality oriented, eco-friendly practices, promotion, evolve strategies to work with private NGO extension business models within agriculture extension, and agriculture department approach need to be changed. I think I'll say that agriculture department's approach in agriculture extension has become sclerotic, has become cancerous. They are not doing any service. They are busy in, they have 110 reasons why they are not able to do it. That's fine. But we have to analyze and say that, hey, you should go this way. That is the policy prescription which we have to give it to the government. And suppose a large number of private agencies are coming up with new models. One, I would like to share with you that the agri extension agri entrepreneur, which has been initiated by the Syngenta Foundation, uh, uh, which trains a 10th class passed or failed for about 45 days very intensive in 3-4 crops of that specific area. He'll go back, work as an all-rounder, of agri extension and agri input supplier and connecting with the bank and so on and so forth. Their target is almost about 3 lakh people. They want to do it in the next 3-4 years. They already done about 2000. NIRDPR has done a study which has found very interesting and very positive changes that are happening. And the farmer pays. And this agri entrepreneur is not a government servant. He's not on the government road. He earns 10 to 12,000 every month by providing those services. There are models. And I think Agriculture Extension Department under the leadership of Mr. Vijayabhinandan should study these things and should recommend, propagate with whatever modifications to suit different areas. Market-led, adaptive to new changes in the socio-legal setting in the agriculture marketing. You are aware that the recent changes in the agriculture marketing through ordinances that has come. And of course, tech-savvy approach is the requirement of the day. That's why I say the friends, the farm advisory services, the agriculture extension is changing. So I would say that I think it has already been mentioned by some of you, like agriculture extension workers should be like a doctor or a farm expert to individual farm holding. Now I'm going drilling down not only the farmer to the farming to the individual farm, because individual farm has varying divergent characters, and based on that, if you can give the advisory to the farmer, that's how we have to find the system. There are systems people are trying, but it needs your support. So the digitization of farm holdings, there's no definiteness in our agriculture. That is another problem. Agriculture census has no clue what exactly is happening, and agriculture census data comes in only after maybe end of second year, third year, fourth year, based on which the policy decisions cannot be taken. So in the data collection capturing also there is a need for our work. That's why I say, dear friends, the agriculture extension worker is a communicator. I am telling agriculture extension as a whole machinery. I treat agriculture extension department of, let us say, agriculture university is the brain, and the agriculture extension workers are arms, legs, and other parts of the body, and the whole person is the agriculture university or ICR system. The brain has to give the indicator. That's where you are sitting. That's where the agriculture extension department is sitting. Agriculture extension system in the university is sitting. I don't like that the agriculture extension department people go to the field and then start supplanting, replacing the agriculture department. They have to go to have the feedback and to train and all those things, but they cannot replace the agriculture department. But we don't know whether the agriculture department is capable of adding that much human resources. So that's why you have to look for other alternative systems, like as I just mentioned Syngenta's experiment with agri entrepreneurs. So the role of the communicator has shifted from that of disseminator of information initially to that of a facilitator of interaction subsequently, and as an agent playing a wide range of intermediation tasks at a range of interfaces situated within networks of stakeholders operating in different societal spheres. That is the changed definition of agriculture extension worker or agriculture communicator. So accordingly, our approaches of grooming the agriculture extension workers at the university level has to be positioned. And extension needs to embrace systems frameworks such as innovation systems framework, which accommodates more number of actors, their interactions, role of institutions, and learning to reinvent its future. Under these circumstances, what can you do? What can we should do? So we should we should look for exploring the new designs of agriculture extension. As I said, the input dealers, there are, I think, more than 2.9 million, I think, million or lakhs, I don't remember exactly, the input dealers. So can we, DESI is doing, so can the extension department, the research and the agriculture extension department can do a quick study or do a research and find out and position whether that behavioral change in this input dealers have come or not, whether they're actually serving that purpose or not. They still continue to pass off their products, their company products where there is a higher margin. So that's where I think your role should come in. So can you come up with the model instead of demonizing it? Somebody may say that input dealers has conflicting interest, so it cannot work. No, not necessary. You have to come up with the model. Suppose, for example, the Andhra Pradesh have started the village volunteer system, that is Raitu Bharosa Kendras. Is there a blueprint for Raitu Bharosa Kendra to work? Whether that blueprint is based on some evidence, that evidence generated based on some quick research, even if it is not now, it is not late. I think you should adopt Raitu Bharosa Kendras nearby to college or whatever it may be, and come study and come up with models where they can really deliver what is required. Otherwise, I am tell you, friends, I am not pessimistic. I'm highly optimistic. But after maybe 2-3 years, these people will be another appendages into the whole system, where they will be fighting for regularization, permanency in the whole agriculture system. But if we give a system, or suppose if we can make them, let us say, entrepreneurs, as Syngenta is doing, they'll earn. Part they'll earn, part government will make. Maybe over a period of 5-10 years, they will completely become independent. And they earn, so that the government will not have the burden of continuing their expenditure. And they will become enterprise. That's where I think youth can be put into. Why youth are moving away from agriculture? They can better serve in these areas. So we should be thinking, we should be looking at, we should be conducting research in those areas. These are some examples. Why agriculture department has become sclerotic. Is there any researched finding, researched article, researched, let us say, publication on this? Why? I don't know. I have not come across any such thing. So what is the degree of, let us say, spuriousness in the input industry? A continuous uh, data, continuous research, and what and how, I said, Right Bharosa Center can perform. Why insurance schemes are failing? What type of insurance products we require? You are all the experts connected to the ground, the rural areas. I think these are the areas which we have to do it. And I don't know. I think I feel that you should tell that I am wrong if I say that the Agriculture Extension Department of our universities is doing very little research in the agriculture extension. Very little research. Whereas our one of the main jobs should be doing research and coming up with the new models, coming up with the new solutions, coming up with the new models, let's say in insurance and so on and so forth, coming up with policy prescription to the government. Government can take based on that evidence-based policy prescription. So that's where I think we have to we have to look at. Of course, ICR has a large number of extension scientists. I don't know whether they're actually doing in those areas. Uh, my only worry is if we do not reflect critically on these areas, mission, services, products, cultures, and procedures need to be developed on regular basis, we might become irrelevant. That is a natural process. If there is no usage, then the redundancy will set in. So will become dysfunctional. So that should not appear. And of course, I will not dwell much on that. That's why I said that as an extension worker, considering these changing scenarios, changing the milieu, the changing circumstances, changing approaches, changing field situation, require wide range of skills to address the increasingly complex rural innovation agenda. Partnering with other actors with these skills and expertise is the only way forward. Why not Agriculture Extension Department invite Syngenta Foundation? I can connect you to them and then say that we partner, let us see, we'll help you, or we'll work together, or we'll provide some, let us say, research inputs for improving the whole AE system which they are trying out. So partnership is a skill that could be perfected only through practice, and therefore it has to continuously interact more closely with other actors to perfect the art of partnering. An enabling policy framework and facilitation support at different levels is required to make partnership a rule within extension rather than exception as practiced currently. Dear friends, I am not giving solutions. You have to give the solutions. I can only pose more problems. But I consider each problem, if we address, can become an opportunity. Every problem, solving a problem can become an opportunity. I wish that you have solutions for all these problems which I am going to pose or which I have stated, or to some of them, or we can put our heart and soul together and find solutions and recipes for these problems. The issues I would like to flag is 70% of farmers are producing less than they invest in terms of inputs, in terms of their labor, and so on and so forth. The law of diminishing returns need to be reversed, for which need out of boxes. It has to be reversed, otherwise sector will dwindle, sector will perish. How can we make the agriculture action system of the state department more relevant? Have you done some, can we do some research as to how the system is in this state? How much of time is actually spent on actual extension, so-called extension at the field level, advising, guiding the farmers, or are they are busy in input distribution syndrome? Their whole time in the monsoon season is spent on input distribution, input to small things. My dear friends, I want to name NABARD and other organizations. I strongly feel that there is no depth of money. There's no depth of funds. There's only depth of passionate effort. Depth of passionate effort among the various stakeholders. That's what I feel. If we start a good thing, money can be mobilized, funds can be mobilized. Do you know that the farmer has a trust deficit on all of us? Should we do some research to find out why that's trust deficit and give solutions? Can we partner with private institutions who are trying to create models for improving the farmers' welfare? I believe that the growth in chemistry, both inorganic and organic chemistry, has flourished when the periodic table has been put in place. We're all scientists, we must have all studied the periodic table, chemical periodic table, structured periodic table. The chemistry has flourished after that. Can we create a periodic table for our agriculture system? I think you should be doing some design thinking. Create a periodic table for the agriculture system. That means finding all actors, all stakeholders, all players, all gaps, and then link up, and then focus on areas where it is going to give maximum outcome, not output, outcome, outside, end of the thing, the farmers' welfare. And another challenge I am posing to all of you is how satisfactory our performance, not vis-a-vis, let us say 290 million tons, vis-a-vis our own potential, your own individual potential. Are you happy that you have exploited, harnessed your full potential, or is there a gap? The potential is a huge. I'll say that each individual's potential is like a ocean, and I'm very unhappy to say that we don't tap that potential. Hardly small percentage of the potential we tap. So can we not come up with the ways and means of creating that ecosystem? And I wish Mr. Vishnu would be hearing this, or you should tell that the university should have that ecosystem where individual will come up with harnessing their full potential. They should have that liberty, freedom, enabling ecosystem to work. In some cases, we may fail, doesn't matter. Failure is the stepping stone for the future success. So it is very, very important to realize that we should harness our individual's full potential. Dear friends, we have the tendency to say that, no, it is not my problem. The problem of, let us say, the director, problem of the head of the department, problem of, let us say, I'm talking to the individual scientists, the problem of, let us say, the vice chancellor, problem of, let us say, the secretary, the chief minister, and then goes on prime minister. If everybody is helpless, who has to bail the cat? I feel every one of us has scope to improve the things. Everyone has a potential to improve. We have to realize that we have to be confident of our own ability. There are so many trying circumstances, there's so many constraints, but within those constraints, there is so much to improve. And if you realize that, yes, I can, you have confidence on your own competencies, you can improve, move towards harnessing that that oceanic size potential available in each one of you, and how passionately we are working. Many times I see that, of course, nowadays people started commenting that, oh, agriculture university, they can work up to 65 years and their scales and so on and so forth. But many times, even within the system, we feel really pessimistic, resulting in we cannot put our full might, the passionate work. I think the passionate work is the most in shortage. Can we improve that? And I feel strongly that now I don't want to take much more time. Maybe some other occasion I can definitely interact with the faculty separately, and of course with the students. I would like to. Um, in fact, the purpose of our life is to work passionately. That's how we can be happy. That's how we can achieve our ecstatic life. Everyone would like to be very happy, joyful at the end of the day, isn't it? The only way is to do our job passionately, because we spend 50% of our active time in that job. If we are rubbishing that 50% of that valuable time, then who is the loser? You and me. So moving towards passionate work is an important element, and uh, and of course there are so many other things which I can say. So, dear friends, in order to move forward, first we have to accept the fault lines, accept the gaps, accept the problems. Without accept the deficiencies, then only we can start looking for the solutions to these problems. Let us accept these constraints, issues available in our own system, which you can mend, you can change. If not, we cannot progress. And that's why I use the word reparation, accepting that something is not right, and then rectifying that reparation, and going to the farming community, farm households, to move them up the 10,000 rupees, moving them up the 20,000, and moving them up to happy families, I think is in our hands. And I'm sure on the occasion of this Platinum Jubilee celebrations, I would urge all of you to look at some of the things which you mentioned and start taking the things in the right spirit. I'm not criticizing. I'm not telling that we have not done enough. We have done enough, but it is not enough. We have to do much more. And I'm sure, I'm confident, I'm positive that we can change the whole situation of the agri farmers, farming families. We can make agriculture as an enterprise which can really support, and especially in the present circumstances of COVID situation, the rural households have to depend on the agriculture and allied sectors. And this is the opportunity to seize, in fact, and come up with these out of box ideas. Dear friends, I thank all of you for giving me this opportunity. And I hope whatever my thoughts would make you to at least a little bit move in our conscience and start thinking in those lines, start working in those lines. And I wish the Agriculture College, Bapatla, all the best. And of course, best wishes to the faculty, students, and all the alumni of the Agriculture College. Thank you very much. Thanks once again for this great opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, Dr. W.R. Reddy garu. That was indeed a thought-provoking address. You have expressed, you have aired your views, expressed your concerns, and certainly we have taken note of all those things, sir. We, at the level of university, will sit together and we will have discussions and we'll take up the things to Honorable Vice Chancellor also. And thank you very much, sir.